Live tonight from iRacing's virtual Dover Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 8 of the 2022 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. And as always, happy that you're spending your Monday night with us here on RaceSpotTV. We're up at the broadcast booth alongside of myself, Evan Pasoko. Happy to be joined by Terry Radford once more. Our producer downstairs is Tyler Maxon, and welcome in to the High Banks Podcast 200. And Terry, listen, we're in a unique part of the season. We talked extensively about this last week, coming off of a dirt race at Bristol, coming through a wild race at Talladega. These are kind of the dog days of the regular season, right? We're kind of midway. Some guys are in a slump, some guys are riding high, and these are the weeks that we're going to look back on when we get to the end of this regular season on if you stepped up to the plate or not. And 200 laps at the Monster Mile tonight is quite a challenge for these 40 drivers.
No, absolutely. And the theme for me this afternoon was wrestling, because after watching the Cup race today, which was supposed to be yesterday, so we get a double dose of Dover. They were all wrestling the track. So you got the belt right over yonder, and you got the Roman Reigns, the tribal chief shirt on here. Somebody at the end of this is going to acknowledge Dover, and they're going to have no other choice, because this track has been known to beat people up, and these drivers are going to be no different. They were wrecking like crazy in practice, just like the Cup stars. So tonight's going to be one heck of a show.
Well, and funny enough, all these races are set for the same date and time of our Cup Series counterparts, because that Cup race, as you mentioned, was pushed to resume today. We're actually running on this date in the sim, so it's an early afternoon race, earlier than it would have been if it had ran as scheduled. So a little bit of different weather conditions as you take a look at our campaign into the month of May, starting off last week with about 5-6 weeks of racing in a row. Dover here tonight, Darlington, a non-points all-star race in a couple of weeks' time. The venue and format for that will be announced on the throwback broadcast next week. Charlotte, Gateway, and then you got a little bit of time off as we head into the summer months. But there's a lot of tricky racetracks coming up, and a lot of bigger racetracks coming up, including some road courses. It's not going to be until we get to Gateway, kind of, but I'm thinking more so Richmond in August, when we're at a short track that races like the Monster Mile. So we've talked a lot about how these drivers are learning these next-gen cars, Terry. If you're somebody who thinks you got them figured out on some of these smaller tracks, maybe a big opportunity tonight to do something with that.
Well, I mean, tonight's a great learning experience, and you talked about going to a track like Richmond to kind of counterpart to this one. I liked Gateway's analogy to that, because granted, Gateway's not a concrete 1 mile. It's a flat, it's there. Gateway's just there. And to see those drivers coming from here and going in the regular part of this schedule, this is the meat and potatoes of the schedule. If you slip up and just consecutively have bad weeks here, you're done. I mean, Darlington next week, you can't screw this race up, because you got to go to the Lady in Black next week for throwback week. Man, I got heartburn just thinking about this.
It is. It could be a whirlwind of 2 weeks if you have a bad night tonight and then a bad night at Darlington. And I promise you, there are going to be several drivers over the next 2 weeks who feel the brunt end of the tougher aspects of these two racetracks. Qualifying underway now for the second week in a row. It looks like the entire field will make the show. 39 cars currently taking part in qualifying, so nobody going to be sent home. That is good news for the field. The bad news will be, though, consecutive weeks with open grid spots means that some drivers will be invited in off of the wait list. Might see a couple of first-timers when we head to Darlington. That's a hell of a track to make your debut on for the season. But you take a look at the running order on the SK Sim Racing leaderboard, left-hand side of your screen. Agado Phillip currently number 1. Andrew Friedosh currently number 2. Still about 1 minute and 40 seconds plus change left on this. I should mention, last race at the Dover Motor Speedway was last last season. That race was 1 hour, 58 minutes, 200-lap race that saw 7 different race leaders, 12 lead changes, but 12 cautions, Terry, for 48 of those 200 laps. And it feels like the attrition has been up over last year at all the tracks we've been to, with the unpredictability and the instability, I'd say, of these next-gen cars. So 12 yellows last year, you gotta be thinking it's gonna be a messy race in that same ballpark here tonight, but we won't know until we get underway.
No, and I mean, you look at the different components that's on this car compared to last year's car that we ran here at Dover. You got the diffuser on the rear. You damage that, the rear end of the car is going to want to move around. If you get toe damage. If you mess up with the alignment by getting into the wall, you're going to see the toe start to swing up. You could tear a spindle out of here. The racket pinion steering. I mean, there's so many different things here. It's kind of hard to react to an issue when the car gets loose, because it's so much easier this year to oversteer that car. And a place like this, when you come into the corner, you dip down and it feels like you're on a roller coaster, because you go all the way down, you sink into your seat, and you think, man, this can't get any worse. And then you come rising out of there, and we just looked at the hump coming out of the corner. That's on both ends of the track. You hit that hump, and it just feels like the car's leaping up. And that's the way this back end's going to feel, that no matter what they do here, the back end's just going to kick back down and plant into this track, and it's going to want to break loose each and every lap. You still got to look at your main key players up here. I mean, Brandon Six has been the class of the field. That might be the guy I'm looking at to maybe tackle the monster.
He is the only multi-time race winner this season. 3 checkered flags in a row. Kevin King, though, your most recent winner. He took home the checkered flag at Talladega last Monday night. Funny enough, you talk about drivers feeling comfortable with a certain kind of racetrack and trying to maximize points. Kevin King was very open last week when we talked to him in Victory Lane, and he was even talking about it on social media before the race. He wasn't a big plate track fan and was able to find success. So who knows, it might even be a surprise name to find Victory Lane here tonight. You've always got to look out for the likes of Lariah and others, should they be in the field, to have good runs here at the Monster Mile. Just about a minute left until we get underway for tonight's High Banks Podcast 200. As mentioned, round number 8 of this 2022 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. We talk about the standings headed into this one. Just wanted to hit on that for the moment. If we talk about playoff standings, right? Points ranked by wins first. Of course, Brandon Six is your leader by a wide margin, atop of your other race winners this year in Connor Horn, Kevin King, Matt Danson, and Daniel Eberhardt. So 5 different race winners in the opening 7 weeks of the season. That being said, though, qualifying has now drawn to a close, so let's go trackside and take a look at your SK Sim Racing starting grid for round 8. And Agno Phillip hangs on for pole. His 22.650 will bring him to the green flag, ahead last week's winner, Kevin King, in second. Your defending Dover winner, Andrew Friedosh, going to be on the inside of row number 3 alongside Cody Harris, with Matt Danson and Tom Wetmore, your top 6.
Eli McCarron 7, Chris Rabel with Timothy Johnson to his outside. Michael Johnson down there in 9th with Joseph Theus. Thomas George and Brandon Bowie rounds out to top 12.
Nick Silver's going to get the lucky number 13 spot alongside Bradley Burke on row number 7. Brian Chambliss and Michael Lariah will be on row 8 with Sam Nieto and Ross Cato, row 9.
Look back here at row 10, you got Kyle Kramer, and that's an odd start back here for Brandon Six, starting in 20th with Rick McBride, Jaron Winemaster, Motasi Major in the Sprite Machine with Anthony DeBarro, rounding out 24th.
Rest of the running order going to go across your screen. The likes of Morano, Kolb, Cohan, Schmidt, Davis, and Kalist inside of the top 30. We give it the tail of the tape at this virtual Dover Motor Speedway. 1 mile in length with 24 degrees of banking in the corners, 9 degrees on the straightaway. Of course, this track known for its concrete surface, which has been in use since 1995. Lights out on top of the iRacing official pace car should be making a dive to pit road road this time, and we will see what Agnell Phillip can do from the front row. He has had a lot of speed this year, not the results that he's wanted so far. He'll bring us off turn 4 as we say, let's go racing at the Monster Mile. Oh, and into the outside wall on lap number 1 already. Kevin King challenging for the race lead. Smack the fence in 4. Phillip leads lap 1, and Freenosh takes over second.
Yeah, I thought that was a very weird move for Kevin King to be on the outside and not just lay back a little bit going into 1. He played the strategy, got up there, seeing if he could make the run happen on Phillip, but that was not going to happen. He caught the outside wall. Luckily, these next-gen cars have a composite body, so no harm, no foul, little fender damage, but hey, there's always some bumps and bruises when you come to the Monster Mile.
There certainly are, and those static shots on the straights really illustrate well right there as you see they come up out of the banking, not going to matter. Spinner though in 4. Does it give us a yellow? It does. Caution flag number 1 on the afternoon. And a couple of drivers with damage. Dane Cruz has lost his engine in the 46 car, but I believe he was late into that incident and made contact with the spinning number 5 of Joseph Tice. Let's watch the replay as they go off into 3 and 4. Tice having a little bit of blinking issues, and right there, the car just got a little bit loose on the bottom, and when he tried to catch it, it stepped up the hill. Admittedly, he did a good job of stopping the race car. He didn't get into the wall, but as traffic came through, eventually he got tagged by Cruz, is 46, who lost the engine in an early yellow here at Dover after a hairy couple of opening laps.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go in this racetrack, and most people say it's just a self-cleaning track, but if you get stopped right there where he was at, especially in the center of the corner or the exit of the corner, it's a whole lot harder for these drivers to miss them. The cars are wider this year than what they were last year, and I know it's only by about an inch and a half, but that means something here at Dover. You used to be able to go too wide through here with getting up off the corner. You would miss the wall just by a hair. Here you don't have that luxury. If you bobble one time off the exit, you're hitting that wall and you're going to hit it hard. Tough break early in the race for this, but you see Kevin Keane on pit road. This is a good time for him just to reset. He has the win in the bank, Evan. He doesn't have to worry about nothing else.
It is tricky for him. Of course, we saw the contact with the outside wall that he had lap number 1, turn number 4. So, of course, he's going to sacrifice significantly in the track position department here. In turn, though, going to come down to the pit lane and try to get that race car fixed up, get it back into a competitive state. Again, it was a weird one. We talk about how you're coming out of the banking, up and over the crest on corner exit, and it led to that contact on lap number 1. It led to several issues. Did not, though, lead to the issue that we saw that brought out the yellow. That was just Tice loose on his own, and the 5 cars also going to be down pit road for some repairs, along with the likes of Liam Sheen, Connor Horn, Tom Morano, and some others down and in for service. Just trying to get things topped off in this one, but you know, that one doesn't necessarily come down to anybody being impatient. It's just one of those Dover deals that I'll tell you what, Terry, you mentioned the fact that, you know, people always say that this is a self-cleaning racetrack as the smoldering wreckage of Dane Cruz's Toyota sits on pit road in the center of turns 3 and 4. I'm with you on calling BS on that, because yeah, sometimes the car will slide down the bank into the gate, but the problem is there's no apron really to slide down to. I mean, there's just nowhere to avoid accidents, and I would call this a self-clogging racetrack before I would call it a self-cleaning racetrack.
No, I'm right there with you, and what a perfect shot right here. And can I brag on iRacing for just a second? I know we do this all the time, but look how perfect they got this track, because when you see the aerial views on Fox or NBC or whoever's covering the race at the time, you see the grooves, and most people go, oh, well, how is the concrete circle. It's just a circle. You're going around turning left the whole time. This track is a unique difference because there's little bits of cut. There's bars underneath this racetrack that holds this concrete together, and it's cut into squares. So every time you hit it, it feels like you're going down, for my Tennessee people, feels like you're going up 65 and you go on the I-24 corridor and you're bouncing up and down there. That's what this feels like. This is a rough ride all the way through, and these next-gen cars, they're a handful already. Throw them here, they're even more of a handful.
We'll see how they try this one out. Back in traffic, it was a claimed caution for Joseph Tice, who gets the end of the longest line penalty. And on the front row, Agnew Phillip chooses the inside. Green flag back in the air with 193 laps still to go on the scoring pylon. A little bit of discombobulation back in traffic, but up front, Matt Danson going to go up to third, taking advantage of Tom Wetmore, who did not get a good jump from third.
That bottom lane got a great jump, but then third on back kind of had a little bit of a, I don't know if you're going, no, maybe you're going. Well, Phillip went, and he took off really fast, and the rest of them kind of just picked and choose where they wanted. But you see 2x2 back here behind them. It's about 9th or 10th on back. We start seeing some side-by-side racing and happening. A lot of people trying to rubber in the very high lane of this track, trying to do what Kyle Larson did earlier today, where he swept up there, cleaned all the dirt off of it, and said, hey, let's put some rubber down here, and we're going to see a lot of changes in the center of these corners where it's going to get darker and darker through these 200 laps.
And you can see drivers trying to get single filed out, try to get some positioning. I think it was a pretty unanimous consent that everybody enjoyed what we saw over the course of the weekend with the next gen race here at the Monster Mile. Of course, most of it happening just this afternoon. Drivers able to make multiple lanes work, fighting race cars. It's always a good time when it's hard to drive these cars. And every time somebody comes off at the corner, someone's loose, someone's nearly into the wall, shows that these drivers are pushing it. But again, it is a 200-mile race, half the distance of our NASCAR Cup Series counterparts. So yeah, you do need to be aggressive. You do need to stand up to Miles the Monster if you want to find success tonight, but you also need to make sure you make it through all the rounds. You can't let him knock you out in just rounds 1 or 2. You got to get all the way, get the distance, be in the conversation by the time you get to the end of this race. You see that 56 car? That's Tim Johnston, down 3 from where he started, trying to put some pressure on Nick Silver, who is up 3 from his starting position. This battle is for about 10th position on the back. The top 9 have broken away just a little bit from all of this excitement in the mid-pack as DeBarro's 27 trying to look underneath McBride. Doesn't do it though, stays in line, P17.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of differing strategies happen here. You saw 2 tires work in the Cup race here this afternoon. As you see DeBarro, he's going to try to make a move down here on McBride. He's going to make that one stick. Oh, he bobbles up just a little bit. Caught a tad bit of the apron there. And you talked about not having a lot of apron. There's a different setting of banking coming through the corners versus touching that apron. And this could be a challenging pit road. So strategies could be galore, but can you not make a mistake going on pit road is going to be the big question for the afternoon. If you make a green flag stop, you don't want to have the snappiness of the car whenever you go to transition down there, because we've seen it before. You could be the first car head first on the pit road, but you're not going to like it.
And speaking of which, if we get to green flag pit stops, you might see a couple of cars headed first into the barrels. One of the trickier pit roads on the circuit. Here comes the defending race winner and the defending series champion, Freenosh, underneath Agnew Phillip. Phillip bobbled a little bit that time before, and Freenosh will lead his first lap of the afternoon, but the 94 will not go silent into the night. He's got a nose in front, and very similar to the battle we saw between Chastain and Elliott earlier today. It is side by side, Freenosh and Phillip for the race lead.
And I know this is early, but what a power move so far for Agnew Phillip as he continues to ride the outside. It's too early for that outside lane to come in my opinion. You don't see a whole lot of rubber up there, but he's carrying a lot of speed through the center. He's rolling in just perfect, not washing up, not carrying too much speed, but he's getting it down in there, getting a little bit on the door in the center, and then he washes back up to the wall, and it's perfect to keep a guy like Freenosh down there. And man, this looks like the battle we saw at Bristol between the two of them. They were really going, as that time Phillip got a little wide, but great exit off the corner.
And look at that. I mean, no inches to spare there. Agno Phillip pushed to the absolute limit by Freenosh. Keeps it out of the fence, though, and they still race on. You can definitely tell Phillip is squeezing Freenosh low in the corner. Freenosh is squeezing Phillip high on exit. Behind them, Wetmore able to leapfrog Danson. He goes back up into third. Danson slides down to fourth, and now Tom Wetmore's got a front row seat at the battle for the race lead as you watch a 9-car group all trying to find a way through. But as this side-by-side battle continues, they're slow and they're not going to be able to pull away. And finally, Phillip defends just in time. Caution flag number 2. Spinner at the opposite end of the racetrack, I believe. Nick Cohan has issues in turn 4, and that's good timing for Agno Phillip. He had just shook off Andrew Freenosh, regained control of the race lead, and then the yellow came out, so he'll be in front as we go under the caution.
I would imagine that right at this moment, you're going to have to start thinking, I got to come down pit road. 20 laps on the tires, and granted, we've had a caution in between, but it was only a 2-lap caution. So it's not like you've really taken a big sigh of relief so far. You don't want to be the guy that stays out right here. I know we haven't really seen find where Kevin King is. He's all the way up 30th. So, I mean, he started a little bit further back, wasn't able to gain a whole lot of position. But I would think that, granted, track position's key, but you're going to need to take some tires here. And if you stay out here, well, you better hope everybody else stays with you.
And we'll see what happens as Cohan has come down to the pit lane, a bit damaged. More drivers towards the rear end. Here's a second look down the back straightaway. There's the car underneath Cohan, a little bit of a de facto 3 wide. He gets up, and there's the touch. Parker once, twice. Cohan almost had it saved, and then it's just like they just can't get off each other. Manazzi Major was right there, and then Nick Cohan finally ends up into the outside wall. I feel like he may have saved it, but when he tried to catch it, came back down. And Dylan Parker, again, I think a bit of an aggressive move, making that late dive to the inside, 19 laps in.
Yeah, it's too early for a move like that. But, hey, it's, like I said, track position, man. You want to get ahead of somebody and do what you got to do. A couple takers on pit road so far. 22nd on back so far has come down of the lead lap cars have pulled in here. A little bit surprised that a lot more takers didn't come down here.
I was surprised, actually, that we didn't see more cars towards the front pit. And yes, granted, we're still early into this race. One thing we haven't mentioned, of course, is that all of the oval races on this calendar only give drivers 4 additional sets of tires available onto the pit lane. So as you see the number of pit stops on our SK Sim Racing leaderboard, you can see all those zeros down the running order. Nobody inside of the top 20 has come down pit road. Some behind have actually been in multiple times, but most of those drivers in for damage repairs. The drivers who pitted most recently, mainly damage repairs, but as well doing some tires as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Is would they love to get tires? Sure. Do you really have the long-term, sustainability to take tires every 20 laps? Absolutely not. And I think that is why you're going to see your race leaders try to stay in this pack. So we saw the top 9 pull away the last time through in a great battle for the race lead. What happens this time? Pace car off it in. Agno Phillip gets his jump, and we're back underway. Lap number 22 in the rear view.
Hey, what a great jump for Phillip right there. Freenosh got a great one as well. He was able to clear Tom Wetmore for the 3rd place position, and it's going to... I don't see a whole lot of stack up here. No, one turnaround on the back straightaway.
Into the inside wall, yellow flies. It is Danson from a top 5 running position. What happened between Matt Danson and Chris Rabel? Because Rabel has already claimed responsibility for the incident, so there must have been contact between those two, and he is just now also saying over the radio that he's sorry for the contact. Danson has had a bit of a rough start to the season, arguably one of his better qualifying efforts here. Let's watch it off of turn number 2. Danson up high, not clear. I don't know if he thought he was alongside or if he thought Terry was going to pull in behind him, but he definitely got him in the left rear quarter panel and cleaned out Danson.
And Evan, that's the challenge of this new next-gen car. Not only is it a little bit wider, that nose is just a smidge higher out there. And yeah, he probably thought he was clear, but man, what a tough break. That Danson was running so good right there. You know, I've talked about it for a couple weeks that when is his race going to get complete? You know, you've seen him complete the first two stages. When is he going to complete that third? And early in this one, stage one, he doesn't really get a chance to complete it. But you still have a long way to go. It doesn't look like a whole lot of damage right there. He might be able to pull back out there.
Yeah, it's mainly rear end damage for him, which again, I suppose better than what it could have been. He definitely hit the front end hard as well. I think that's really what's going to end up hurting him is front end damage. It's going to hurt the aero. It's going to hurt the ability of that race car to stick to the ground. And of course, it's going to hurt the ability of that engine to cool. So Danson, I don't know if it's terminal damage, but it's certainly enough. I think that's going to take him out of a competitive place. But listen, we are on lap number 25, and we had 3 yellows in the opening 23. So that means there's likely to be much more attrition if he's willing to stick with it. And again, I mentioned it was not the greatest start to the year for him. Danson comes into this evening, you know, in a top spot in the championship courtesy of that win. If you take that win out of the equation, 22nd, Terry, right? So the way this season is going to go, we're not likely to get 16 different race winners, right? That one race win should get him into the postseason, but you take the win away, you're looking at a car that's not in the top 20 in points. So Danson certainly is going to want to try to build momentum, knowing he has that win as kind of a fallback, as a safe haven, but this is not the way to do so.
Well, and that's what the beauty is about the winning in is you can't control everything. He couldn't control that. He was up front. He was competitive. He was a part of the top 9 breakaway. He could see the leaders. You know, that's something I'm not saying he could hang his hat on that. But no, you came to the toughest track on this schedule, and you were right there. And this could set you up for Nashville. It could set you up for Bristol when we go there, when we do have the concrete surface and not the dirt. There's a lot of things that he can set himself up for and really put it out there. I don't see 16 different winners because you see Phillip and Freenage up there. Brandon Six is making his way through the field. He's up to 12th. A lot of these drivers, even Kevin King, he's up to 28th right now. There's a lot of strength in this field, but 16 different winners, in my opinion, just doesn't seem like that's what we're going to do. I don't know. Danson might surprise us and come in and win next week.
Wouldn't surprise me, given, you know, the way that this race has gone tonight. Worth noted again, he has not yet gone to the garage. Danson is still in this race. He is on the racetrack for the restart, but Danson's the guy that can hold a grudge in a good way, right? He's somebody who can turn a rotten night like this into motivation to be good going forward. So we'll see what he can get out of it. Of course, Chris Rabel also loses out. Rabel was in a top 5 position, but caused the caution. He claimed responsibility for it to avoid the penalty point in that 5-point championship standings penalty as well. So he'll take the EOL. He's down in 29th. So we just took 2 of, in theory, some of the fastest, 5 or so cars in this race, sent them to the rear. So does this open an opportunity for Michael Johnson, who's now in 5th, for Thomas George in 6th, Bradley Burke in 7th? What can these drivers do given their newfound track position running inside of the top 10? A lot of drivers, though, have gone to the garage since this race started. Dane Cruz, Tom Morano, Joseph Tice, Anthony DeBarro, Jaron Winemaster, and Liam Sheen have all gone to the garage. 33 drivers remain on the racetrack and on the lead lap of this race. Phillip seems comfortable on the inside of that front row. He's going to go underneath Andrew Freenage once more and typically waits for the pit wall to fire off. He'll wait a little bit longer this time, playing some games with the cars around him. Now he puts the right foot down. Green flag back in the air. Phillip gets the jump off to 1.
Man, what a set of mind games. That you got to throw people off. Everybody got used to what he was doing on the initial restarts. He was just smashing it the moment he saw the pace car turn right. But now, not that time. And you see a lot of great racing so far, about 7th on back, 2 by 2 as they go. And Freenage is he's there.
And you can see the side-by-side is from about position number 6 or so on back. In fact, make it for 8th position. Johnson and Silver will race side-by-side. It's about 7-8 rows deep of this racing. They look just like they were on the restart a couple of laps ago, and I think it's a good sign when drivers can hang both on the inside and the outside. Both lanes are cooking here this afternoon in Delaware. The 4-car of Silver wins out in that lead group battle. The 2-car Nieto is going to follow through, and looks like maybe the outside the place to be. Johnston unable to come up with an answer down low, drops 3 spots in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, you start to see the rubbers laying down. I talked about it earlier that you'll see this track go through transitions to where you'll see it go gray. It'll be just completely concrete, and now you start to see cars running through. And I could brag on iRacing again. That's perfect dynamic track conditions because we started this on a very green racetrack, and now here we are 31 laps into this event, and you have all of these drivers that have went through these corners at the highest speeds possible, and they're just throwing rubber down on it, moving the marbles to the outside. Nobody wants to get in that sticky stuff up there, but they're riding the groove. They're pushing the cushion, like we called in the dirt race before, all the way up the track. And here comes the 31 of Kevin King, and he's starting to make some moves back here. He's up to 18th.
Doing his job, working his way through the field in traffic, and look at the 32 car right there as well. Shane Ewing slicing and dicing as some of the drivers as well with fresher rubber get closer and closer into the top 20. The lead charge is led by Connor Horn, but you get the freshest tires if you look back to the likes of David Cobb, Dylan Parker, and Nick Cohan, who pitted on the most recent trip down to the pit lane. But I mean, if they can, these drivers want to get single file. They want to be able to pick and choose their battles. They want to set somebody up, pick the inside or the outside, and go for it. You just saw Kevin King's 31 car right there on the inside clear the 15er at McBride, so make it now P15 for him as he continues to charge towards the front, trying to make up for all of that lost ground.
Yeah, and something that's a big difference from last year's car and race versus this year's car and race is the caution flag is flying for the 3rd time over the Monster Mile. Believe the incident here. We might be looking at the incident here.
I wonder, was it Kalis? I see Kalis is slow, and I suppose it could only have been Sean Kalis in the 43, and on his own, it's a tough one. Not what you want to see out of the SK Sim Racing Ford. Nearly gets clipped right there when he looks back up the hill, but I'll tell you what, that looked very, very similar to that early incident from Joseph Tice. You go down the hill, it's rough, you bounce down into the canyon that is turn 3, and very similar to Tice's incident, Kalis goes around on his own.
You remember what I told you about when you come into the corners, you're sinking into the track, and then you got to drive your way out to hit another bump. This is, I mean, like I said, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, man, NASCAR is just, you just go fast, hit the gas, turn left. No, there's a lot more to do here. You have to be cognizant of what you do on this racetrack, especially here at Dover. There is so many rivets in this track, and we called it on dirt where you start tearing it up. Here, you're actually hitting. You see the lines on the racetrack right here. I don't have John Madden's pointer, but there's a lot of lines right here. Those are bumps, and no matter what you do, you're going over this at about 170, 180 miles an hour, digging into the corner. You hit those bumps, you get on the brake just a little bit, the back end wants to hop, man, like a bunny, and it sends you around whenever you get on the gas too hard, or you do something of that nature to upset the back end of the car. And these things are light like a feather. The back end just wants to step out every time, and you saw it with the 43 right there. Just lost the back end, but what a heck of a save. How many times, Evan, can you say that a car went around at Dover and didn't hit that wall?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of drivers now tonight lose, complete control of their race cars, right? Not just a little bit out of shape. I mean, go all the way full snap and not end up into the fence. Now, some have gotten tagged thereafter, but Kalis included doing a good job of trying to limit the damage and keeping their race car out of the fence and keeping it in competition. Of course, that was a nice high look above the virtual Dover Motor Speedway. Sean Kalis has claimed responsibility for the incident. He'll get the end of the longest line of penalty. That is our fourth caution of the afternoon, 3 of which have been claimed by different drivers. Tice, Rabel, Kalis, all racking up a penalty point already. And, speaking of penalty points and drivers coming back from such, you'll notice Connor Horn's number 67 machine not off to a great start here this afternoon as he runs back in 24th position. But, of course, he is excited to be back in the field here this afternoon because Connor Horn and Dylan Parker were both serving 1 race suspensions. Horn's was for a penalty point violation. If you accrue 6 or more penalty points at any time, you're parked for a race. And Dylan Parker coming back from a 1 race suspension for violating Rule 2-10 avoidable contact. So those 2 drivers missed out on Talladega. They are both back in action here tonight. Connor Horn needs to mind his P's and Q's, though, because he still only resets down to 3 penalty points. Again, that's only 3 away from the limit. And it is also worth noting that Dylan Parker does return with a 5-race probationary period, which means all of your penalty points are doubled when you're on probation. So if you claim a yellow, that's 2 instead of 1. So they better behave themselves. And I don't know if this is necessarily the racetrack that I want to be on timeout for, but a couple of drivers need to play it smart.
That's a lot of math, man. I tell you, I would probably be suspended after the first race. I don't have very much patience. I get out there on the track, and I was to the point I was about to make before the caution come out. These cars are much different than last year's in so many different ways, and we'll continue to hit that throughout the season. But last season in those cars, you were able to get right on the back bumper of somebody and really play with the aerodynamics of the car. You were able to get the back end loose, make it step out, wash them up the track without ever putting a bumper on them. These cars are not that way. You can get to the back bumper of them, and you literally have to knock the mess out of them. Man, you got to slap them harder than my mama in the backseat of a Buick to get that going. And my mom knocked the mess out of me a couple times, but didn't move me out of the way apparently, because here I am.
We'll take some notes as this one shakes on through. Kalis to the rear. We are almost quarter distance on pace to exceed the caution total from last season. Pace car off. Agnew Phillip goes super early this time, and it catches Freenosh sleeping. Wetmore goes to P2. I thought Johnson was going to go for it. He opts to bail at the last moment. So Freenosh sticks in third. Fight's going to be behind them in a battle for fifth. Harris and George side by side down to 3.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to see a green flag run happen here because a lot of these drivers have a lot to prove. You need to lay more rubber down, get this track worked in, just like, any other track. You want to get the best grip possible. You see the 28 going down in the corner. He kind of lost the nose just a tad bit, but he was able to save it. Cody Harris doing a great job. -1 position from where he started, hanging around in this top 5. That might be my sleeper pick to give this. Oh, the 6 got tapped there.
A little bit of a close call there. Thomas George going to hang on, not behind though. Hard into the inside wall. A massive hit. More drivers going to be involved. Connor Horn picks up a piece as well. But it all started with, I think that was Stanford in the 19 who got turned sideways. They all got a little bit shaken up, and I think he got pinched into the wall, and that was a mammoth of a hit that collected several other cars. Watch that 19.
My goodness. Yeah, you see right here, just pinched up in the wall, turns around, 360s it, does a little dirty dancing, comes back on the track, smacks that 67, and then what the heck is the car doing right there, driving in like Days of Thunder? He could have missed that completely. Drove right in, and baby apparently don't sit in a corner.
Maybe drivers practicing for their ARCA career didn't see that one coming through turn 4. I mean, I'll tell you what. Stanford bounced out quick. I'm not blaming William Schmidt, but there's a couple of drivers who came in pretty hot late. I think it was a big hit for the likes of the 72 of Chris Edwards, who, again, maybe trying to make up for something, but passed about 4 drivers and then was pretty determined to find something. Here's Benazzi Majors flying arrows perspective from his Sprite entry. You can see bouncing right up the hill. Look out! What a drive to find a hole, and Benazzi survives.
Yeah, that was pretty good wreck avoidance, but my goodness, are we going to have any cars left? We're 44 laps into this, and looking at this here, look, damage, more damage. Like, what car doesn't have damage here other than maybe the top 10 or top 12? Because I haven't seen Tim Johnson or Brian Chambliss get in any incident so far, unless they've hit something and I didn't see it. But man, who knows? You might see our boy Matt Dancy come up here and get something out of this.
Let's see Shane Ewing on board inside of Parker. There's the contact down low, and that's just right place at the right time. If he was a car length further forward, might have been in the initial wreck. And if he was a car length further backwards, probably would have got suplexed by the car jumping back up and off of the inside walls. So sometimes, didn't we say this is Talladega? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and I think there's a couple of drivers thanking their lucky stars that they're still in this race. I'd hate to be the bearer of bad news and tell them that they're not even quarter distance. There's going to be a lot more where that came from.
I like the wrestling reference. Yeah, take him to Suplex City, a little Brock Lesnar style.
I try.
Just throw him around. Yeah, throw him around out here. I come out here with the Roman Reigns shirt on and got the belt and the camera shot. Just a little show off there. That whatever. But yeah, it feels like we're at a wrestling match right here, and this is no holds barred. Kind of like Vince McMahon, no holds barred type match. These drivers are putting it out on the line, and you look at this on board right here, just boom. Oh, William Schmidt got popped.
Hey, that was a windshield full of race car for poor William Schmidt, and nothing he could have done there. More drivers trickling down to the pit road. It's funny, a majority of the cars in the field have pitted, but I don't know if many have pitted like with a typical intention of pitting for tires and fuel. I think most of it has been for bare bond and cutting off some body panels. I'm looking at the top 12 yet to pit, and then Kevin King in 13th on 24 lap old tires compared to the 44 lap old tires for the drivers up front. So as that lead group really wants to save tires, remember, you only got 4 additional sets available. You can't really afford to pit any more than every 40 laps or so, which we're at that point now. These drivers, I think, are trying to stick together. But I think another factor here, Terry, which I would suggest is I think they're afraid of pitting because then they're going to be back in all that. And I don't think anybody wants to be in the midfield right now.
Well, I can't say what I wanted to say. I don't think our producer has a bleep button, but heck no, I don't want to be back there. That's a tornado waiting to happen. I wait for the stage to end. Come on down with everybody else. It's just like heading to the Walmart, Evan. You don't want to go to the Walmart when all the crazies are out. You want to go early in the morning. All the people are at Waffle House sleeping over their hangover. I ain't going to that bag. I don't even want to watch the bag.
You can see all of the limped cars back there in traffic trying to catch up as they hobble to the rear of the field, beaten and battered. This is going to be a night where a lot of race cars don't go the distance. There are still points to be earned for the drivers, even after they have been involved in incidents. Eric Stanford to the garage after that most recent yellow flag. A pace car off it in, though. Agonal Phillip is on cruise control. He has led 43 of the 45 laps complete thus far. It'll be another slow roll restart, which he will get a great jump on and rocket out to the race lead. Here comes the fight for second. It's Andrew Freenosh inside of Wetmore. He'll take it away in 1.
Yeah, Freenosh got a great restart right there. Wetmore got caught sleeping, just like Freenosh did on the last restart, but good recovery so far for the 88. Hasn't left the top 3 all race long, and there's no need to, as you see side-by-side battling for 5th here. This has been an entertaining race, and now we try to push it 3 wide with more carnage, about to be ensuing here.
Yeah, we'll see how long this one can last. And again, it's not coming from, 3 wide running out of room. It's single car battles. It's a group of 2. It's a group of 3 where it comes from. And that's just the nature of the Monster Mile. You referenced it earlier. I mean, drivers were wrecking race cars in practice. This is a tough joint to get around. There's a reason I talk about racing at Dover instead of racing at Dover, because you'd be hard-pressed to go solo around here for 200 laps and keep the race car clean. So drivers working hard as you see the 15 to McBride, a little bit slow off at 2, but David DeCalble up not to challenge in a battle for 18th and 19th. And that 3, Dylan Parker, trying to bounce back from an earlier race incident. He gets around Johnston to move him now up into P16.
Yeah, you see a lot of these drivers so far with a little bit of damage to the right side or maybe even the left side. It's kind of making rebounds here. A lot of drivers working the fresh tires in. Kevin King's all the way up to 20 or up to 8th. You got Shane Ewan up to 12th. That's massive. They were involved in earlier incidents. As you continue to see 2x2 action going on, you see the 6 right here. He's sitting up in the 5th place, a 7th place position. You see the fight for 8th here side by side. And look at all the damaged cars so far coming back through the field. This is quite impressive for these drivers.
It is. They're working hard. They're doing everything they can. And again, you see a bit of a bubble, if you will, right? Thomas George in the 6 is leading the group we're looking at. He's in 7th. Kevin King is behind in 8th. They're about 2.5 seconds off of the race leaders. So every run that we've seen get to 5 laps, get to 10 laps, indicates that the lead pack is able to pull away. And it's the midfield where you get all the side-by-side and whatnot. It looked like up the road there was a duo, Burke and Bowie, and then maybe your top 4 on top of that, but certainly the field splits apart into groups like this when they get the green flag laps necessary.
Well, you just see who's fast and who's not. I mean, it's kind of like if you put me and you out on a racetrack, you're probably much faster than I am. I'm typically 10 or 15 seconds back off the lead, and I dang sure wasn't racing Dover. I couldn't even get a lap in practice by myself. We can see the 17 right here making the outside work. But I'm sorry, the 11, it looks like a 17. But you see it going all the way up to the wall, shooting it through the middle, getting a great run off the exit with no help whatsoever. And it's starting to see some side draft take place here. Lap 54 on the board, and it's just as chippy as it's going to be on the last lap.
I just love listening to some of these race cars as they rip through the Monster Mile, and the 2 Machida Sam Nieto able to get all the way clear now of Thomas George as the battle for 8th position rolls on through. And now Cody Harris is 28 to go underneath. You ride on board with Harris's Chevrolet, and you heard that extra lift, right? He started to roll into the throttle, center of the corner, had to get back out. It's because that 6 of George was holding him low, wasn't allowing him to push up like he wanted to, and now Harris a bit more assertive, pushes the 6 car up in the center. That's the dance that's going to be going on all night, fighting over squeezing somebody low and pushing somebody high. It's all about trying to find that optimal line, and right now they're keeping it clean, but into the outside wall goes George. Kevin Kinged it. A little bit too wide off of 4. Nick the fence will give the spot to Cody Harris. The Sirius XM Mustang hangs in there, but that was a pretty solid lick. And Brandon 6 now underneath him. We haven't talked much about 6 tonight, but he's nearly inside of the top 10.
Yeah, that's the second time for the 6 to get in the wall, but this time was able to kind of rebound here. Lost the spot to 6 and is about to lose the spot again here to Silver, and Cohn's right there as well. Going to make this pass typically happen. He's got stuck to the outside. The 21's missing the entire front bumper, but whatever. Up to 14th and battling for 13th right here. So don't need all your body fixing this to get yourself around this track. The speed through the corner is going to carry you perfect, and you don't really need a lot of speed going down the front and back straightaway here either because they're so small. But what incredible action here in the middle part of this field. The front pack doing their own thing. They've then pulled off Freenage is down 0.2 of a second to Phillip. And it is just 2x2. Try to take it 3 wide right here as the 52 wants to shoot the gap.
I think it goes to show you, if you can get the laps in, these drivers will put on a show. I mean, this is a racy track in these next-gen cars. Drivers have options. Again, still not the numbers we saw last year. Last year, 7 different race leaders, 12 lead changes. Tonight, we've only seen 2 different race leaders, but there is still some strategy to be decided. And look at the 4 and the 6. Silver and George leaning on each other. Parker's into the wall. Parker takes out Cohan. 2 drivers involved, and now they'll take more.
You go back to this isn't a self-cleaning track, and the old famous saying on the official servers is hold your brakes. You know, you see here is we're going to come around, and believe this is the live shot here. We're not on the replay just yet, but if you hold your brake in that situation, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody, you could have not came back up on the racetrack and taken another driver with you, or potentially 2 that just got swept up in that incident that just could have been 2 people. You know, the 21 and him made the contact, and they stayed on the low part of the track, but that's Dover. You know, it's what this tight quarter racing's going to do to you.
And now I wonder, like, have we reached that point where the leaders are going to be coming in? Freenach almost faked out, but decided to pull back in. And for the first time tonight, your race leaders are down pit road. Expecting it to be 4 tires and fuel across the board. In fact, almost every single car in the field diving down pit road, with the exception of maybe 5 or 6 total. And now we'll see who's going to win the race off of the pit lane, and then we'll update you on how it all shakes out. Philip, all the way down to pit stall number 1.
That is not a very smart move for this top 6 that just stayed out. Kalis down there in 6, granted he's pitted, so is David Kolb, but for the drivers that have not taken tires yet, this is not smart. They're going to get swallowed up here, as the 2 fastest drivers so far are going to come off the pit road with 4 fresh tires in your mirror. I know that sounds scary, but trouble could be a brewing up in the front, because a lot of these drivers so far either A, had damage, you know, or B, just no tires. Take a look at the replay right here. Joe, my gosh, that 3 hit the wall a ton right there.
There's another close call there with the onboard look, and as mentioned, 6 drivers did stay out. Casto on 20 lap old tires, Kolb, Davis, Cato, Kamer, all with 27 lap old tires. Sean Kalis was one of the drivers who stayed out. He, though, has decided to come down to the pit lane. Dylan Parker has also claimed responsibility for that incident. However, he was credited with being at fault for the lap number 19 incident as well. So instead of the end of the longest line of penalty, he will receive a black flag and have to hold on pit road for 1 lap. Not a deal breaker. He's already down onto the pit lane for damage repairs anyways, but a no good, very bad night thus far for the likes of Dylan Parker, who again needed a good night here tonight. And it is, let's just say he's got the losing side of a battle with Miles the Monster. Not the first driver to do so, and again, I can't stress this enough, still shy of 1/3 distance.
Yeah, I mean, we're 36 laps away from halfway, and I know my math's all not that great, but I kind of would have came into this race with the Merle Haggard approach. You know, you're walking on the fighting side of me, and then, you know, quarter of the way through the race when I realized, hey, I'm not having a good one, I probably would have went the Garth Brooks route of just sing the dance to me. I know I've had a bad night, but let everybody else wreck around you. If I'm some of these drivers back here in the back, if I'm Burke, Rabel, Horn, if I'm one of those drivers, let everybody else wreck. Don't go a lap down. Let the field take themselves out. I promise you it's going to happen at some point in time. If we get, you know, tempers flaring, people start getting mad. You've seen wrecks happen, and then they just continuously happen behind you because, one, either A, we hit the wall, we bounce off the wall, or B, the track's clogged completely. There's nowhere to go but to get into the wreck. And I think this restart, you know, with these drivers staying out, Evan, this could be a wreck.
Cohan has also gone to the garage. His night is done. I mentioned Stanford on the last yellow. I believe the only other driver that we have not talked about, Chris Edwards, to the garage as well. That will leave us 30 active cars on track. 28 of them are on the lead lap as we run. So yeah, let's see how this works out. Because the number's 5, Agnew Phillips going to end up on the outside of row 3. That might put him at a disadvantage to Freenosh on the inside of 4. We'll see how it plays out. Casto's in control, and from the front row, he gets a great restart. He'll lead the charge down to turn 1.
Oh, and no, Phillip got an incredible run right there, and he's to the back bumper of the 11. That's for P2. Just get out of my way. You know, pull a little ludicrous out, and Freenosh is stuck. That outside lane took off, and Freenosh is on the bottom with, what's that, 3 cars in front of him with no tires?
Yeah, he's trying to pick his way through. He wants to get there. Freenosh is marching through, but again, I think the positioning is really the challenge because he's stuck with the roadblock with Wetmore and Kolb right now. Wetmore Freshies has allowed Agnew Phillip to really take the stranglehold of the fresh tire run.
Yeah, and he's catching the leader here a ton, and you see Freenosh to the low side there. That car gets into the wall. The 11 taps it just ever so slightly, but now he's got Thomas Wetmore in front of him, who has been very fast. I mean, he's taking it. He has fresh tires, so what are you going to do here? You have a guy with fresh tires who's about to pass another guy in Davis without fresh tires. This could bestow a challenge upon him, because Phillip's gonna, once he gets assumes the lead here, if he does, and he gets ahead of Casto, this could be night time, because if we go green, good luck catching him.
Drive-through black flag penalty to the driver of the number 11 machine of David Cobb for an illegal lane change. Lane changing to before the start-finish line. So that's going to take him even further out of this. Of course, he was already going to be on the back foot as one of the 5 drivers on the old tires. But that's going to make his night from bad to worse. Put a bit of a block on it before the start-finish. He'll dive down to the apron and clear the racetrack this time through. And no surprise, Agnew Phillip has ended up on top. 1 car into the outside wall. I think we're all right. Just a small touch for Shane Ewing. There he is, a little bit slow. Saw him in the corner of that shot. And other than that, no surprise. Old tires sinking, with really the exception of Casto. And I saw Casto fire off really well, Terry. Remember, he had slightly less terrible tires than everybody else, right? His were about 10 laps better than all the other drivers who stayed out. So while Davis has fallen, Kamer's fallen, Cato's fallen, Sean Casto holding right now in P2.
Yeah, doing a marvelous job right there in that 52 machine, and you know, up 29 positions. This is huge, but we're looking at a guy right here we haven't talked about really all race long, and that's right now the 38. We haven't really talked about Danson doing anything more than what we saw in the top 5. You look back here with Roth Cato, look a little bit here, you got Rhett McBride, Bradley Burke. These drivers kind of waiting and seeing what we can do. Kevin King's working his way up here to the 14th position. This group right here could be the focal point at the end of this race that we look at. Hey, if you could get a top 10, you might be able to get a top 5, even with the slightly slower car or a little bit more damage than most. I mean, you see the damage on the 15 right there on the front. You could still manage to get a top 5 or a top 10 here tonight if you just play your cards right.
And look at that 34 car there sneaking through the middle. Brandon Bowie, somebody who's looking to close out one of these races and have a good afternoon. And Bowie doing a good job so far. I mean, didn't talk a ton about him. Didn't talk much about Six. Didn't talk much about Casto. And yeah, some strategy has led to why these guys are in the positions that they are. But also it's adversity, fighting through it and getting into the conversation. Of course, you talk about what Brandon Bowie has done so far this season in the conversation, yet to put the car in victory lane. I just, looking at it, yeah, we got a little bit of strategy mixed in here, and we're not even halfway. That's true, but I just think something's going to have to happen to take Agnew Phillip out of this thing. He is so good. 65 led to Casto's 8 to Freenosh's 2. I mean, it has been a while since we've seen Agnew Phillip absolutely dominate like he has. And I always get a little bit nervous sometimes when a car's this dominant in the first half, because then you spend most of the race thinking about how he's going to screw it up, right? I mean, it's always like you want to work for it, fight there, and peak at the end, right? He's good now. I bet he wishes that this was the Coke race from last week at 120 laps instead. We got an extra 80 on top of it again, this time by 122 to go, but maybe a little bit of separation will allow this thing to get some laps knocked off the board.
Well, and there's a ton of ways to screw it up here at Dover. You have to think you can overcook it in the corner. You could overcook it on exit. You could hit the wall. You could speed on pit lane. You could hit the tire barriers going onto pit lane, touch the apron, wreck the car, bottom out coming on the exit of the corner. There's a ton of ways to lose it at Dover, and I'm sure that's running through his head at how good of a car he has, because he's dropped out to a 1.6 second lead over Freenage. As you just continuously see these battles going around here. Wetmore fell back a position. He's got Brandon Bowie all over the back bumper. The 34 is going to take a look here at the 51 and thinks twice of that one. He had the run manifesting as they went down the back straightaway or the front straightaway, but couldn't make it happen. Just kind of hit a wall of bricks right there, and it just looked like the car just kind of stalled out.
Yeah, we've seen drivers, shall we say, I don't know the right terminology for it, but we've seen drivers put together a couple of good laps in a row, and then we've seen drivers just be awkward, right? When you talk about stalling out, falling flat, it's a clunky race, especially when you get late in the tires. I mean, yeah, majority of the field, they're only on 18 lap old tires, right? So these cars aren't driving bad, but we've heard it all night listening to the onboard cameras, right? The lifting and the fighting, the car as it shakes loose and pushes up right there in the center because it's loose diving down into the corner. It's a beautiful kind of racetrack to run, but also it looks sloppy, right? You're not point, shoot, and drive off of the corner. I mean, these guys are working hard. Every single lap's going to be different than that of previous, and I think that's kind of the beauty in it in a racetrack like this. We take a step back in the running order, looking at the 12 of Ross Cato and company. This group of race cars from Grant Davis on back. So 15th on back is this big pack right here. It's about maybe 7 or 8 cars in line total. They're already 8+ seconds off of the race lead. So, this is now the segment of the field where these are cars that have been involved in incidents already, right? They're damaged, they're beaten up a little bit, they're limping around the racetrack, and they're still fighting in the top 15, right? I mean, that goes back to the point I made earlier, the fact that even if you got damage, this is a race with the attrition level. That means that you're going to want to fight through, because there are plenty of points on the line, even for these drivers who are nowhere near the speed and pace they had earlier.
Yeah, you can think of the carnage that can happen in front of them. This is the longest green flag run we've had so far, and I might have just jinxed that, but this is. So you don't know what the cars are going to do. We haven't put that many laps on tires consecutively. We've seen a spurt of 5 or 6 laps, so we take the caution, we cool the tires back down. And I actually got a tire over here, and if we ever get a chance to pull it out, I'll pull the tire out and just show the different wear parts of it, what it's going to pick up, the marbles these cars pick up. I mean, I'll continuously keep bragging on what this service does in iRacing, because it really sets true. If you pick up marbles, you go to that outside lane under caution, you pick up all the stickiness, you pick up all the dirtiness on your tires. You really got to manage things throughout this race. You don't want to be the first one up there all the way against that wall trying to pick up some speed and pull a Dale Jr. and take that wall and maybe scrub some speed off of it. But for these drivers here, there's a lot of carnage and a lot of stuff that can happen. You look right here with Matt Danson, kind of working his way through the field. He's up to 14th, but look at the long list of cars in front of him that is just easy pickings if he can set a run up on them.
It is, and this is where, you have to go up a little bit against, what your instincts might be, and you do need to be a bit patient, right? You mentioned set it up. This isn't a racetrack where you can just kind of bulldoze your way through like a bull in a china shop. You need to pick where you're going to go. You need to try to set up the pass. You can get underneath somebody, or get to the outside, however you want to make the move. But I'd also be cautious, because look at that. The 52 car casts into the outside wall. Remember, he's sliding on those older tires, so he's at a significant disadvantage to all the other cars in this pack. Kevin King gets by him, Thomas George gets by him, Bradley Burke could be the next driver to go underneath and try to get by him. But if you're dancing, if you're just driving through willy-nilly trying to make moves, or anybody else for that matter, right, trying to get around Casto, you're gonna get in trouble. You need to read the room. You gotta see who's overdriving it, who's pinching who's good where, and set it up. But again, 200 laps of Monster Mile is a healthy dose of racing. You can afford, I think, to be a little bit more methodical about those moves and pick and choose your battles. And I think that's what you're seeing out of Bradley Burke here, right? He gets stuck a little bit alongside Casto, but he's not putting him up into the wall. He's trying to reset. But this is what happens when you get stuck under somebody, right? If he timed this with a run, he could have passed Casto in one corner. Because he's stuck alongside him, he's not getting the arc into the corner that he wants. He's not getting the arc off of the corner that he wants, and you get stuck in a little bit of mud here. So he is finally going to push his way through, but tell you what, Casto made him work for it.
You ready for a Terry analogy?
I'm always ready.
Driving here is like a country song, because you always know that you're going to get caught up in somebody else's problem, and then you're going to lose your car. You're going to lose your time. You're going to get penalty points. You might get suspended. And you just out there playing with the banjo in the backyard. You see the cars on the outside. They get pitched up on the wall. They come off by the exit. If they touch that wall, it checks out the whole field. The whole field gets checked up. The whole field wants to bottleneck into one another. Everybody funnels like they're rubbernecking on the interstate. Everybody wants to see what that car's doing. They lose focus of what they're doing there. That's when you get people going to the back end of others. That's when you see people going around. You saw it all day in the Cup race. Car would spin 3 or 4 seconds ahead of them. Car comes barreling on into turns 1 and 2. You see the car spinning. They lock the brakes up, and these brakes are much bigger than what they were back in the day or last year. It's so much easier to lock them up. Everybody else wanting to get in everybody else's mess.
It seems like everybody's just begging to be the next one in on the fun as you see the beaten and battered number 29 of Chris Rabel on the outside go a lap down. Not the night that he would have wanted for his High Banks Podcast Ford Mustang. Of course, tonight's race title sponsor, our friends over at the High Banks Podcast. You can tune in and join Alex and Nick on every new episode of the podcast available on Spotify. So big thanks to our friends at the High Banks Podcast. Of course, not tonight exclusively. They are very involved with several of the drivers here in the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, and happy to have them on board as the title sponsor of tonight's High Banks Podcast 200. So we'll give a call to them, and I know Chris Rabel wanted a little bit more for it. Always next time. I'm sure we'll see those colors on him later in the year. We pick up the battle for position number 10. It's Bradley Burke underneath Thomas George off of turn number 4 as we close in on halfway home.
Yeah, you see this battle going on right here. Silver's really trying to make the run. Yeah, that's what it's showing for me. Showing these drivers right here. I just talked to myself on here. You see Silver right here coming in the mix with the 4 car, getting underneath the 38 of dancing there. But the 6 got away. George was able to work his way into the top 10, and that was probably the craziest thing I've done on air. I'm talking to myself here, and yeah, it's pretty good.
Listen, everyone's got a method. There's always a method to the madness, and I've got some like Canadian analogies. I'll throw a hip check in there every once in a while, right? You got your country song analogies. I think your brand of analogies are just I can't top them. I don't think anybody can. But listen, just like driving a race car, there's a method to the madness for pretending to know what these drivers are doing and faking it up here in the booth. As Danson's continuing his march forward, he's going to get clear of Nick Silver. So Danson back in the top 12. Again, given the circumstances, am I shocked? No. But when he nose dove that thing into the inside wall in the earlier quarter of this race, if you had told me, don't worry, he's going to be back in the top 12 by halfway, probably thought that would have been a little bit unrealistic, but give him credit. Beat up race car and all, and probably worse damage than most. He's sticking with it.
Well, and you talked about it. You've watched him all season long. I came in just a little bit later, but we both noticed a trend. You can give the 38 a rotten lemon, and he's going to make you some damn good lemonade. And the 38's doing that as we take a look here at the battle for third between Brandon Bowie and Tom Wetmore. These two drivers have kind of been the Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr. combo here tonight. They haven't left each other's eyesight. These two have been right on top of one another for the past, I don't know, it's about 40, 50 laps, and they've just been constantly beating each other in lap times. They're flipping who's going to do what at what time. And I don't know, that Chevy's looking good, but that Toyota, man, he's wrapping that bottom.
Doing his best to rip it on the bottom there, and most drivers, of course, going to use the bottom. It's funny, the outside was really good on the most recent restart, and even the one prior to that. In a lot of the battles, the outside won out, but anytime we're single file, you're not running that lane up, right? The outside's really effective because of what it takes away from the car underneath you, not because of the advantage it gives you. And that's why when we're single file, drivers are all going to grip down on the bottom. You got to be careful because, you know, a lot of racetracks have a progressively banked part of the apron. Dover does here as well. It's not to a total flat, but it's at least a 20-degree difference right away. So you nick it with the left rear tire, that thing's going to get real upset and out of control. So there is a limit on how much you want to push it. There's also, interestingly, not really a line down there either, right? I mean, most racetracks have a yellow line, a white line. You kind of know when you get onto that, that's the limit. Obviously, the change in, makeup of the racetrack, because the part of the racetrack that the drivers, of course, are running on is the concrete. That apron is still asphalt, so there is enough of a contrast to tell where it is, but there's no real line down there as well. So drivers just kind of need to find that limit on their own.
Oh, I can tell you, I found that limit the moment I come off of pit road. I instantly started spinning, but then again, I ain't no count on here. That's why I put a headset on and talking to a mic. I don't do nothing else. If you'd have told me, you talked about our boy down here, Matt Danson, being in the top 12. If you'd have told me Kevin King would have been sitting P8 right here with 94 laps to go, I would have said you're crazy. I would have said there's no way he makes it through the chaos in the back end of this field to get all the way up here, battling for the 7th place position. He's all over the back bumper of Harris right here. And Cody's driven a very smart race. Got no sponsors on it. And I know that sounded like I'm from the back hills of Tennessee, but he's got no sponsors on it. That kid has been outperforming a lot of these drivers. He come in second over our P3 actually at Bristol. It goes to Dega, puts on a heck of a show, comes here, look at him. He's right here in the mix again, fighting with the big dogs of what these guys do. These guys are getting paid out here to be a brand ambassador for their sponsors. Somebody give that man a sponsor, because Cody Harris is putting on a show for people, and I don't think his talents have been appreciated 100% here.
And Cody Harris has been rocking that red and white unsponsored scheme since he burst onto the scene as a serious competitor in the road courses a year and change ago. And listen, a constant threat up towards the front of the field. He has his good runs, and I think has started to turn himself into a staple of a top running car here in this series. Obviously, always room for improvement. Borderline playoff driver, 17th in the standings coming into tonight. Still, looking for a tad bit more. But tell you what, somebody who's definitely gotten a good work out of it. And talking about, our progression through this race, we are past halfway home in tonight's High Banks Podcast 200. So let's recap where everybody's running and take a look top to bottom at your SK Sim Racing midway race break. So at lap 111, Agnell Phillip is your race leader. He has just led his 101st lap of the afternoon. He's about 1.3 seconds out of Andrew Freenosh in second, then Brandon Bowie in third. Tom Wetmore sits at fourth, and Sam Nieto is in fifth position. Brandon sixth is in nowhere else but P6. We got Kevin King behind with Cody Harris seventh. King is eighth. Michael Johnson is running in ninth, and Bradley Burke right now in P10.
Get Thomas George in 11th, Matt Danson 12th, Nick Silver in 13th. Sean Casto is down there in the 14th position. Tim Johnson, Grant Davis, Rhett McBride, Kyle Kramer, Ross Cato, and Shane Ewing round out the top 20.
Continuing on through, last couple of cars on the lead lap. William Schmidt 21st, Abadazzi Major 22nd. 1 lap down is both Michael Laraya and Connor Horn in 23rd and 24th. 2 laps down, Chris Rabel 25th and David Cobb 26th. Sean Kalist -4 in 27th, but he's likely to be the next retiree. He stopped on pit road at Brian Chambliss 28th, Mike Kaczynski 29th, and Dylan Parker P30.
Nick Cohen down there in 31st with Eric Stanford 32nd. Chris Edwards, Liam Sheen, Jaron Weinmaster, Anthony DeVoro, Joseph Theus, Tom Morano, and Dane Cruz, retirees of the night. Tough night so far for those guys, but hey, they got next week.
Is always next week, and it's not going to get any easier, as we talked on the top of the show with the Lady in Black in Darlington coming up in 1 week's time. That is a look top to bottom at your SK Sim Racing midway race break. SK Sim Racing is the iRacing team and channel with an emphasis on reaching those who are new to the oval sim racing community. You can engage with them online at facebook.com/SK Sim Racing, on Twitter at SK Sim Racing 1, and you can race what champions race by visiting sksimgear.com. 84 laps to go in Dover. A couple of battles still throughout the field. You've been watching the battle with Johnston for the last couple of trips around the sun. He is, trying to stay up there in a competitive spot, trying to keep the pressure on the drivers around him. Everybody doing what they can in 17th position on back. Clearly, those drivers who pitted on the most recent yellow must have looked into their crystal ball, Terry, and known that it was going to be the longest green flag order of the night coming up afterwards, because you got the freshies when you wanted them. They are really reaping the benefits.
Yeah, and I have a feeling we're getting close here to green flag pit stops. You're going to have to start seeing something. The field's spread out. Don't expect to really see a big issue when it comes to people spinning out or wrecking here. I know the tires are, starting to get wore. You see the battle for the lead. Andrew Freenage is really closed in here. He was at one point in time a second and a half back. He's now closed that to 0.6 of a second. Now make that a half a second. He's coming up pretty quick. As the run progressed, you see Andrew really starting to make a whole lot of time. He's wrapping the bottom better. Cars starting to come in. I think he kind of started out a little tighter than he wanted to. He couldn't really get the power off the exit, but now look at him, man. He's really making some hay.
Yeah, you look at your biggest movers tonight. The biggest of them all is a two-way tie between Shane Ewing and Sean Casto. They're both at +17 apiece. You also get the likes of Grant Davis and Brandon Six, who have been on the move. They are both at +14 positions apiece. Of course, if I'm going to talk about the good, I'll mention the ugly, and Joseph Tice, who was involved in an earlier incident, -27 after starting in 10th. He will likely finish this race down in 37th position. So when you got movers, it always means you got losers, and those are your movers and losers so far through the opening 120 laps of this race. I am surprised, I will say, Danson, yeah, the car's probably got a little bit more damage than some of the cars around him. Thomas George is hounding him. That Sirius XM Mustang might take a crack at him here shortly. However, the biggest that I was worried about for Danson was not the damage that was going to hurt him speed-wise. It was the temps, right? And maybe this is a change with the next-gen car, more iRacing specific, right, Terry? With the Gen 6, anytime you got any significant front-end damage, car was going to get hot, right, of course, and that was because drivers could select a tape amount on the grill of the cars. You can't do that with these next-gen cars, and it appears that that front-end damage that used to cause havoc may not be as bad with this new race car.
Yeah, can we get a closer up shot of the 38's front bumper here? Because there was something that I noticed while you were talking about that. You see that the front end's kicked up just a tad bit. You see it's kind of got like a smile to it now, where it's kind of caved up and it has an evil looking stare to the front. That grill opening hasn't been damaged too much. You see the splitters kind of kicked in just a tad bit, but not a whole lot of cutting the circulation off to the front of that grill. Once you start, there we go. It has like a weird look to it. It looks like one of the, remember that they had the Walmart, the smiley face person? It kind of looks like an evil one of those, but still got the grill open and still looks good right there. All of this stuff's going on. It's a little caved in there, but here at Dover, the temps really, I don't think would have caused that big of an issue, other than maybe if you got tucked up behind somebody, you'd run a little bit too hot. But man, creepy looking car.
It is a mean-looking Camaro. Maybe a little bit biased. Always haven't been a Chevy guy. Big fan of the Camaro as is, but it's looking mean. It looks angry, I think, is really what I get out of it, right? With some battle scars. It's worth noting, you said that you didn't think we were far from pit stops. They have kicked off back in traffic. Ross Cato and Shane Ewing pitting from the high teens and 20s. They were on very different fuel runs, but on some of the older runs. But it certainly means that the bank is open with 73 laps to go in this race. That drivers can do at least 90 laps on fuel, that the bank is open. These drivers can pit whenever they want. So the question is, when do we start to see the big dominoes at the front of the field come down for pit road and really shake some things up? Because we haven't talked much about fall off tonight. It's not terrible. These drivers only have about a second to fall off what they're running now to their faster laps, right? It's not like there's going to be a huge 4-second swing, but I've always been a fan of the undercut, so we'll see if anybody wants to go for it. Rhett McBride, the 15 car, pitting from 18th position. Again, still down the running order, but you got to think Philip, Freenosh, and others not that far away. And look how close, by the way, Freenosh is to Philip as they work around Schmidt.
Oh my gosh, when he passed Schmidt right there, I thought that the 94 was going to find a way to lose this race. That back end kicked out and almost tagged the wall there, but was able to gather himself up, recompose. If I was Philip, I would say within the next 3 laps, Freenosh has caught you. You have a 4-second lead over there on Bowie, but go now. What are you waiting for? The guy's already caught you. There's no sense in waiting and playing the guessing game or letting it pass you and get an advantage and try to undercut him. You'd kind of be wasting some time. And if you're going to let him go, just let him go now. Let him go right behind him, see what he's doing different. You see how he's cutting up the track right there, running about a half a groove up from the bottom. Phillips getting loose off the exit, but the Battle Beaver machine right here of Andrew Freenosh just looks like he's on a rail. He'll kind of cut up, and you'll see him swoop back down to get the cut on the exit to get the run off the corner. If I'm Phillip, hey, put the hand out the window. I'm coming. Let me come down pit lane.
It's always funny, how long they wait. Does the race leader want to be the first one to go? And I did mention earlier, right, that I thought it would take something to Mammoth to get Agnew Phillip off of this. I mean, he was kicking butt. But on this longest run of the night, Andrew Freenosh has reeled him in. Now, hasn't passed him, but if you're Freenosh, what's your motivation to pass him right now, right? You're on the long run. Just keep pressure on him. I think clearly, long run, 88 car, the better of these two. It's funny because Agnew Phillip has led 123 laps. Andrew has led 2 total. So Phillip has locked up the bonus point for most laps led. But again, I said it earlier, you almost don't want to be that good early because you're only thinking about ways to lose it. You want to be really good in the second half, and it's a 2-horse race. You see the 2-car of Sam Nieto. He's going to go around Tom Wetmore because Wetmore pits from P4. But again, Wetmore's 5 seconds off of the race leaders. He might gain some time now, but I see this long-term as an Agnew Phillip and Andrew Freenosh battle for the race win.
Yeah, I don't, unless we see a caution, I don't see a whole lot of the guys third on back really making a difference in this race. You're not putting a whole lot of pressure on the top 2 to come down pit lane. If Bowie comes down, okay. And I'm not saying that to brush him off, but you're not really going to gain a whole lot. We talked about the time second fall off here. Their best lap so far, at 23.0. The fall off has been a second. So it's not like you're going to go out there and just put blistering lap down after blistering lap down. You're going to fall off with about 3 to go, and then you stay consistent the rest of the way. But here we are. We got a 1/10 of a second separating the leaders, and this right here could potentially be the race win unless they wreck each other. Knock on wood that doesn't happen. But 2 of the best drivers in this in this series so far. And now it's going to be a battle of who comes down pit lane, who has a better entry and a better exit. Pit stop's not going to matter. Who would have thought it? I thought we were walking away here.
One, we kind of alluded to this vaguely, but didn't get much into it, right? But I mentioned that this is one of, if not the trickiest pit road entry. I referenced the barrels. It's a good chance somebody either misses pit road or wrecks the car coming to pit road just based on the aggressive nature of the pit road entry, right? It's a thin apron, and you got to slow the race car all the way down to 35 miles an hour. And not, of course, put it into the tires. So that's the concern, is those yellow barrels. Just watch them. They might be the star of the show a little bit later on. Faster car. Remember, the first driver to pit, Shane Ewing, getting around your top two cars. So there is no doubt that the fresher tires are quicker, and more names continue to fall. Casto on pit road, Kalist on pit road. More drivers going to be in, as Grant Davis will give up the number 12 position. He also comes down to pit road, but still waiting on the top two. And does Freenosh go for the race lead now? Looks low, but Phillip's going to squeeze that off as they lap Rabel again.
I thought that was going to be trouble because you saw the lap car right there kind of stall Phillip going into the corner, and Freenosh had a run, had an opportunity to really force the issue, and it's 60 to go. You know, we were forcing the issue with 190 to go. I mean, we were forcing it with 10 laps into the run, and now here we are. We're coming down to the later parts of this race. The top two leaders, when they come down pit road, barring a caution, you're not coming back, and maybe not even then. I wouldn't say that they would come at that moment. You see a slower car right in front of them here. This is going to get interesting because you're going to play mind games with your opponent. You could come over the radio, hey, I'm pitting. I don't know if that's legal here. I'm not much of a reader, but you've come down and say, hey, I'm pitting. Make that person second guess you. Pretend like you're coming down. Kind of fake them out like that quarterback did in the bowl game where he pretended to slide and then took off running some more. But Freenosh is all over the back bumper of Phillip, and this is the most pressure that 94 has seen all night long, and just so happens to be the Battle Beaver 88.
Just so happens to be, of course, we saw an exciting Battle Beaver dirt race at Bristol a couple of weeks ago at the Bristol Dirt Track. Brandon Six won that one, his third of the season. He's been somewhat quiet tonight, but an impressive plus 15 positions and fighting for a top 5 spot. I think Brandon Six is still the guy to beat so far this season. But you talk about these two as we run on board with Andrew Freenosh continuing to chase down that car in front of him of Agnell Phillip. Freenosh in his 7 starts this year, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, no trips to victory lane yet. Of course, we talked about the up and downs for Agnell Phillip, who has a ton of pole positions to his name. Right? He's got 1, he's got a bunch of top 5s, only 1 top 10 though. Phillip has not been able to execute in the race, and here is the challenge. Freenosh underneath is going to stick with him. There's lap traffic up the road. How does that play a factor? We've seen these two side by side before, and they're going at it again for the race lead. 54 laps to go.
Oh, and this time I get to brag on the producer. Tyler's given us an incredible shot, gave us the onboard look to the driver's side of the 94 there to see this Battle Beaver machine get right up there. Kind of pretend like he's going to door check, but look at that. Look at the run that Phillip gets in the center of the corner. Pushes down the track just a little bit, gets on the door, and we heard this earlier. Oh, Freenosh touched the wall, but hey, whatever, it fixed itself. But you saw it in the cup race earlier. You can get on the door here. The aerodynamics doesn't affect the cars as much. All it's going to do is slow that driver down and make them second guess getting back on the gas because they know they can't. They'll push up through the center. But look how perfect these two have been able to race one another. The past 10 laps, they've just been right on top of each other. Not one mistake has been made thus far.
That's the key, is when you're racing side by side at a track like this, neither driver can make a mistake. And give credit to these two, some of the very best in this Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, have the trust in one another to go side by side, right? If Agnew Phillip didn't trust Andrew Freenosh to race him clean, he would have let him go. If Freenosh didn't trust Agnew Phillip to race him clean, would have probably just moved him by now, right? It's good to see when you have high-level talent drivers like this comfortable to fight against each other. Madanzi Major not comfortable, though, making a pass on Freenosh. He is better with fresher tires, but not willing to pass these drivers. There's also a lot of smoke on pit road from Sean Kalis, and I think that car's just been sitting down there smoking for a while, but it's either that or we've elected a new pope of the Dover Motor Speedway, but he's just burning to the ground on the pit lane entry. I thought maybe somebody had gotten into the barrels, but nope, that's no new smoke. That is still the smoldering wreckage of the SK Sim Racing entry.
That made me spit my drink out on that one.
Listen, I can pull one out every once in a while.
I thought it was Cale Yarborough down there smoking old Winston's or something, but you start to see him getting around here, and here comes I would say the biggest domino, and now, Freenosh. So,
I saw that smoke. Did he go fast?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, he locked them bad boys up, and your two biggest dominoes have fell. We'll see what Kevin King does here. It looks like he is going to pit as well. Matt Danson does not. He'll assume the lead there. And look at all that traffic that they're having.
Contact with Michael Johnson, I believe. Was it the 39? It was. Johnson got moved out by Brandon Six, who had already pitted. And then when he tried to get back into his stall, Agnew Phillip was next to him, and they made contact. There's now some minor damage on Agnew Phillip's 94, and on the race off of pit road, a dead heat. Freenosh to the outside, Phillip underneath, and Andrew Freenosh gets it done on pit road.
That's huge. That is huge. And what is the damage going to do to Phillip right here? It's, well, now, if the caution was to come out, Tom Wetmore would be your free pass. Not saying it could happen, but it could happen. But that is huge. We talked about it. You would rather be good in the latter parts of this race, not the early part, because then you have so many more laps to make a mistake, not of his own doing. And that was another point that we talked about. You could literally run 199 perfect laps around the Monster Mile, and that last mile, somebody else makes a mistake, and it's your problem then, which is why I said Dover's like a country song. Everybody else's problem is yours at some point in time in the race. Well, for Phillip, somebody else's problem was his.
Thomas George, who assumes the race lead and gets a bonus point, says that he is going to be coming down to the pit lane this time, and Agnew Phillip is barking at somebody on the radio. Maybe
barking at the
Thomas
six?
George. Yeah, Thomas George is saying, hey, I'm trying to pit, and Agnew Phillip's yelling at him to get out of the way. Of course, it was a speed difference. Not sure what Agnew wants Thomas to do there, but I think that's just the frustrations boiling over from what happened on pit road. And again, I don't think it was anything necessarily wrong that Michael Johnston did, right? He was hit by another car. Agnew Phillip saw the 39 slowing, pulled to his inside. Of course, you're supposed to stay to the right until you get to your pit stall. And then when Johnston pulled into the box, Agnew was to his left. I suppose you should have seen the car on your left, but it's not like one person was driving like an idiot. It was just unfortunate timing with a congested pit road. And I do think that contact is the reason that Freenosh was able to beat him off pit road.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, that slight little bobble, the little small contact that happened, and I know it's easy for us to say, oh, it was just a little contact. That looked pretty tough. And now you're 1.2 seconds back behind Freenosh, who now had just assumed the race lead. And this is fourth lap led of the night, and it's going to come in the most perfect time. You got 42 laps to go. Wetmore's there. He pitted on lap 135. Obviously, it was easy to get around him, and he's pulling away by almost a second after passing him 2 laps ago. But Unless a caution comes out, I'm not too positive if we're going to see Phillip make this run back up here. But he's driving like a mad teenager right now. He's wanting to barrel through this field.
He is committed to trying to just go through, and I'm wondering, now that we've seen Avram, and that's it. Connor Horn's pitting now. That is it. Everybody else can go to the end of the race, maybe with the exception of Brian Chambliss, who has gone 76 laps. Everybody else safe in that 90-lap window. Only reason I know 90 is a safe number, we saw about 2-3 different drivers do it with the aid of one yellow or two. So that's why I think about 90 is the maximum or so. But Andrew Freenosh, was better than Phillip on the long run. I don't think there's any denying that, Terry. So I think even without the contact on the pit lane, there's still a really good chance that Freenosh could have got this done. But yeah, he last lap 0.3 seconds better than Agnew Phillip. 3/10. Andrew Freenosh is just cooking with gas right now.
And that fell right into his lap. I'm not going to lie. I kind of thought that if Phillip would have beat him off the pit lane, that Phillip had an opportunity to pull away with this win, because granted, we pulled off 45 laps to go, right? It's still a long run, but it wasn't the long run that we saw from the caution pit stops to, when he finally called it for the green flag pit stops. Take a look right here with Burke. Bradley Burke's been doing an incredible job, plus 8 positions up to the 6th place position. And Brandon Six, who we thought, and I personally thought coming into this race, if you would have said, Terry, pick a winner just off of a blind taste test, I'd have said Brandon Six. That's the guy that has figured out these next-gen cars, has done everything right, put all the races together. To see him qualify 20th, be up here in the top 10 at the end of the race. Solid run so far as he's looking to make the pass here. Not going to do it. Him and Burke, they've been on top of one another dang near for the last quarter part of this race. And Six is trying to get up here. And maybe if a caution comes out, then we're really going to be talking. Who's going to come up here and be aggressive at the right time?
And now that it appears, barring some late race antics, 36 laps to go, a lot can happen. It appears that we see the advantage is to Freenosh. What are those other fights, right? Watching Bradley Burke right now in the 95, trying to get back on a Brandon Six, who completed a move on him. So Six is back to 6th. Burke is back down to 7th. You look to where else spots could be made or lost. I think there's a handful throughout the field that are still up. King and Harris for 8-9. McBride Silver Dance at 11-13-14, still under a blanket. Even maybe a top 3 spot between Wetmore and Bowie, still to be undecided. But most of the interactions on track right now, lead lap cars on lapped cars, is one of the battles I was just referencing. Happens. Danson makes the pass on the 4 car of Nick Silver. He's up to 13th.
Yeah, and if they're looking at their track map of where the leader is, you're on the same straightaway. Knock, knock, who's there? The leader. That's who. You got to go. Matt Danson's had an up and down night so far, up in the top 5. Rex goes to the back, drives back to the front, and the damage eventually has kind of feathered itself in, where green flag pit stops were not his thing. Might have took a little bit of damage repair on the optional side and lost a little bit of positions. Maybe was praying for a caution to go out there and fix all of it, but you don't have a whole lot of time on pit lane even under caution here, because you click laps so fast around here. But for Danson, he's got McBride right in front of him in the 15, another opportunity to pick up the 12th place position. Johnston's right there. There's a lot of upside right now for that 38 machine, as you see now. The 34 of Bowie making the pass on Wetmore for the 3rd place position. Couple spots that you just talked about that's up for position that really could be a toss-up here.
And Tom Wetmore, somebody who we've talked extensively about this season as one of the most impressive drivers onto the scene here in the series, with that 34 machine of Bowie completing the pass. Bowie, I think, a staple name in this championship, but Wetmore, one of the new kids on the block for Roadhouse Motorsports out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, has been extremely impressive so far this season. And I expect A lot of good results out of that car through the year. Again, consistency is the thing that he's looking for, but he has had several good runs, and he's actually, I think, improved quite exponentially over the course of the 8 races that we've seen so far this year. But he's got trouble with all these drivers around him, right? He's got older tires. He was one of the first cars to come down for freshies, so that's why Bowie was able to pass him pretty quickly, and why I suspect it's not going to take too long for Sam Nieto to do so either.
Yeah, it's a good reference to the New Kids on the Block. I just found out earlier today they actually put out a new song. Good little 90s boy band out there. But the New Kids on the Block out here are starting to show up. You talked about Wetmore being good out here. He's been battling around this top 5 all race long. Had to play a little bit of strategy to get up here, but still there. You know, kind of slipping back a little bit because he is on older tires, pitted on lap 135, but you go all the way back to Bradley Burt, who pitted lap 140. They're kind of an intertwined mix here, and I can imagine that if we do get that, you know, the yellow flag, where if you would have told me after the 3rd caution that, hey, we were just going to go on a string and no yellows, we're just going to run green dang near to the end, I'd have told you, Evan, you're crazy. There's no way at all that this would happen, but it happens.
I mean, given the complexion of this race, not saying it to jinx, I'm just reading numbers, okay? You had 6 yellows in the first 60. You've had none in the last 110. We are getting down to the home stretch here at Dover Motor Speedway. Let's leave this one to dealer's choice, to our producer Tyler Maxon downstairs. Let's experience the sights and sounds of the Monster Mile and to go RaceSpotTV fan immersion. What it's like to take a couple of hot laps around the virtual Dover Motor Speedway, fighting against the Monster Mile. These drivers starting to get onto old tires late into a long green flag run in tonight's High Banks Podcast 200. Happy that you're with us on RaceSpotTV for round 8 of this 2022 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. Evan Pasoko, Terry Radford upstairs with Tyler Maxon in the production trailer, and this race, of course, had its wild and chaotic moments early, but it has had its thought-out battles to the end. And watching another one right here, Terry, as we're watching Sam Nieto try to close in on Brandon DeBuy for third and fourth now, inside of 15 to go.
Yes, it's about one of the only battles on the racetrack other than Wetmore and Brandon 6 that is still hot and ready to go. You know, it's kind of like the Little Caesars pizza. You're seeing Nieto get all of the back bumper of Bowie, kind of putting some pressure on him, trying to make it work. We're coming close to 10 laps to go. The pay window is open as you see both battles in one shot right there. They're on the same straightaway. The only battle that, you know, I'm kind of disappointed in is the battle for the lead. You know, I really thought that the battle for the lead would be the one we'd be watching to the very end, but 2.5 seconds later, and Philip is he's back here.
He has slipped a little bit further and further back. And again, we knew before the pit stops, we knew before, that Freenosh really got to him and the drama unfolded on pit road. The fact that this was a 2-horse race, right? Agnew Phillip could have probably come to a stop, go to the concession stand, get a drink, keep going. He'd still be ahead of Brandon DeBuy in third position on the back. It's about a 7.5 second margin right now. Very clearly a 2-horse race. But I think what we're seeing is, again, yes, there's going to be opinions and thoughts and a controversy on the contact on pit road, but at the end of the day, Freenosh is pulling away from Agnew Phillip on the long run, like we saw in that most recent run towards the cycle of the green flag pit service. And again, Phillip's good, but on those long runs, tough to beat a guy with Freenosh's level of experience. Watching the 56 and others do battle as this race winds down to the end of it all. It's for the first spot, 1 lap down. In 11th position, Davis has got it. Tim Johnston wants it. And Nick Silver, not that far back either. Minazzi Majors, Green, Sprite, Chevy, not a part of it. But those 3 cars in front of him are fighting for position.
Yeah. Can you believe this? Oh, there it is. Oh, Brandon 6. Oh, my gosh. Him and Wetmore, and they saved it.
No yellow.
Saved it. No yellow. He saved it. What a save. I just saw him and Wetmore was right on top of one another, and that right there could have changed the entire complexion of this race upside down. It could have flipped the whole thing like a flapjack, and that would have made a compelling story. Because who pits, who stays out? Track position's been the real key here. But now you have to see, look here. He goes in the corner, thinks it, and just loses it. He just loses it there. Tires are hot. There's a lot of excuses that you could make right there. The sun got in his eyes. It's a lot going on here. But hey, he fights on in 8th, and he's still in the lead lap.
And you mentioned saves earlier tonight. What a save by Brandon 6. He did nick the inside wall with the left rear, but that thing was doing 111 miles an hour, pointed to the outside wall. He locked it up, kept it off the fence, and give credit to Brian Chambliss, Kevin King, and Bradley Burke for not getting into him. Somehow no yellow. Of course, it hurts 6's night because he drops down a handful of spots in the running order. Cody Harris is likely going to pass him here as well, just because his tires are cooked. But I mean, that really could have turned this race on its head in the blink of an eye, and that's why you never say never. I know we're watching this battle with Grant Davis, Tim Johnson, Nick Silver. It was for the first spot, 1 lap down. The first driver a lap down is Matt Danson, which again, just want to give him his dues. After that big wreck earlier, has climbed his way all the way back to a top 10 position, as we see Harris now trying to make the move on the wounded 66 of Brandon 6, and he's done it at a turn 2.
You can't start quoting Justin Bieber with 5 laps to go. That is I mean, it's blasphemy, but still a very good song of Never Say Never. Great album as well. But Harris, man, up to the 8th place position. I know getting around a very bald tire 66 right there. The rear end's just probably screaming. What a save. What a save. These drivers here in this series have really put on a show of keeping them off the wall. Oh, 6 still loose. You see him in the center right there. Try to get back on the gas. That thing wants to spin out every corner. He's got his hands full there.
Yeah, he does. I mean, these are not the oldest tires these drivers have been on tonight. They've driven them to 60, 70, 80 laps. Most of these drivers at about 45 lap old tires. But I did mention that the time of day for this race was changed, right? It did not start. Oh, and there's it again. Again, those tires are heated up. It's bad. But I did mention, this race was supposed to start at 3. But because the real race got postponed to follow suit, this race was changed to a noon start time. So the track is hotter than it's ever been right now. And maybe that's why these drivers are struggling, as Andrew Freinosh is looking for the white flag.
Yeah, he better get to going. He put the pedal to the metal because, man, 6 is wanting to wreck. Like, I hate to tell you, but Brandon 6 is wanting to wreck. That car is hollering. But Andrew Freinosh, he stole this one, man.
He waited around, stayed in the conversation, made us think that he didn't have enough, and then put it to him on the long run. And the defending champ is back. First win of 2022 for Andrew Freinosh, who tames the Monster Mile.
Yeah, that Beaver battled its way to a win. Man, I wanted to say that all night long. But yeah, he got up there and the Mustang looked real good. It waited. That's patient. That was the most patient thing in the world. Just waited in the wings, made it happen.
Of course, we mentioned earlier tonight the defending race winner here at Dover, and he is able to back it up with an impressive run. Only leads 45 at the 200, and he's going to go turn that thing around and to give us the Polish victory lap that we are so accustomed to seeing from Andrew Freinosh. What a job as he continues his Dover dominance. Winner here in 2020, winner in 2021, winner in 2020 as well. So make it 3 times consecutive here in Dover, Delaware. And now he'll come and burn it down on the front straightaway. It is Andrew Freinosh victorious in the High Banks Podcast 200. As the celebration continues, let's take a look at our SK Sim Racing full race results tonight from round number 8 of 2022, with only 9 drivers finishing on the lead lap in total before this one was said and done. Freinosh is your winner, 4.1 seconds over Agado Phillip P2 and Brandon Bowie in 3rd. We'll talk with all of them in a few moments. Nieto Wetmore also with top 5s. Bradley Burke comes home in P6 tonight with Kevin King in 7th. Cody Harris is 8th. Last car in the lead lap, P9 to Brandon 6, and it is a top 10 for Matt Danson.
You look back here at 11th place position, you've got Raleigh Grant Davis right there, starting the lap downtrend here with Timothy Johnson, Nick Silver, Rhett McBride, Kyle Kramer, Ross Cato, Michael Johnson, Thomas George. I'm going to screw this up. I'm just going to say Major down there in 19th, and then 20th is Sean Casto.
Continuing on through, Shane Ewing 21st, David DeCall, William Schmidt, Connor Horn, Chris Rabel still in this contest to the end through 25th. The rest of the drivers not so fortunate. It includes Brian Chambliss, Michael Araya, Sean Kalis, Mike Kaczynski, and Nick Cohan, the top 30.
Rounding out your field here, you got Dylan Parker, Eric Stanford, Chris Edwards, Liam Sheen, Jared Weinmaster, Anthony DeBarro, Joseph Theus, your biggest loser of the race there in 37th, Dane Cruz, and Tom Morano is going to round out your 39 car field here this evening.
And that is the luck top to bottom at our SK Sim Racing full race results. SK Sim Racing is an iRacing team and channel with an emphasis on reaching those who are new to the oval sim racing community. You can find them online in several ways at facebook.com/SK Sim Racing, on Twitter at SK Sim Racing 1, and you can race what champions race by visiting sksimgear.com. The celebration must be continuing for Andrew Freenosh. He is not on pit road yet with us, Terry. So why don't we do this in reverse order? I'll hand things off to you first. And let's chat with Brandon Bowie. The 34 car comes home in third tonight.
Let's do this a little bit more laid back than normal. What up, Brandon Bowie?
What's going on, Terry? How are you?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. Didn't get a top 3 finish. I think I finished last, but you come up here, you get third. That 34 looked real good. You definitely kept it real tonight. How'd you do it?
Thank you. It's been a long, God, man, I don't know, last year sometime since I've got top 3. It's been a struggle. I don't know why. My pickup races, I've been fine. But for some reason, this league is definitely got me struggling. But it's good to finally get a top 3. Mainly, I just try to stay out of trouble, try to avoid the wrecks, and just try to make my tires last as long as possible. I came in on that green flag run and took 2 tires and put just enough fuel in it and picked up, I think somebody told me I picked up 3 or 4 seconds over Sam and 6 who had originally passed me. So that's basically how I did it. Took 2 tires, a little bit of fuel, and came to the line with I think 0.4 gallons of fuel left. So it's top 3, so I'll take it. I kind of miss getting these podiums.
That sounds pretty good. Sounds like a real good thing that you got. But you look at what's coming up next week, man. You're going to head to a total different track. You're going to go to Darlington. Are you going to keep that Toyota out of the wall, or are you going to be one of the people that we're sitting here talking to maybe mid part of the race, talking about how your race is over?
I'm probably going to get a stripe, to be honest with you. Darlington last year was pretty good, actually. Me and Andrew, if I remember correctly, we battled the hell out of each other, and made a good race out of it. So I don't know if this car and me really match up at Darlington, but we're definitely going to put 100% effort into it and see if we can pick up two additional spots from today and maybe get a win.
What's your throwback idea for next week?
I can't tell you yet.
Oh,
But,
I thought I'd get the scoop.
No, not yet. I'll kind of say all that later on this week. But I will say the year is 2013.
Kyle Busch. I called it. I like it. I like it. Well, all right, brother. We got any sponsors out there you want to talk to?
Yeah. I got to thank Digital Motorsports, Boosted, Life of a Sim Racer, which is my YouTube channel. So check me out there. Mara Racing Network, Elwood Designs, Battle Beaver. Got to thank Keeping It Real. Overall, as a team, we're definitely doing it big in the team standings between the battle between each other. So that's real fun. But got to thank you guys, and thanks, Terry, for interviewing me. I guess this is my first time being interviewed by you. So I just want to let you know, keep it up. You're doing a good job in the booth.
Well, I appreciate that. Most people don't come up here and tell me that, but yeah, we try to have some fun. But congratulations, Brandon Bowie. P3 here tonight. We'll see you at the Lady in Black next week.
All right. Thanks, Terry.
Appreciate it, brother. Guess what, boys? You get to hear more of me. I get to go talk to Agnell Phillip, who, little heartbreak. Yo, Mr. Phillip, how you doing, man?
Doing fine.
Well, you didn't seem too happy. That contact on pit road. Remember, this is a PG-13 show, but what was the emotions there? Like, what went through your mind?
It's just a awkward kind of situation. I wasn't expecting to catch up to Michael really at all on pit road. And once I think he was going a little under the speed limit for whatever reason at the beginning, so I popped up to him, and then that's when there was just all these cars kind of coming together. It just kind of turned into a bad situation, and instead of just staying to the outside, knowing I had the first stall and I could just afford to do that, I went inside, and that's what kind of happens. But it's good, fitting, I guess. Way to lose the race. I was struggling with lap traffic kind of all day, so kind of figures to some degree that that would be kind of what costed me the race, just not in the way that I thought it would. But all in all, a pretty good run. I wanted to get a solid result for the first time this season. So mission accomplished in that regard.
Well, you come off a pit lane, you got stuck behind the 6 there. Heard you come over the radio. You had it just sounded like for the first time all night you were just so frustrated that the mistake happened on pit lane, and then you come off and you could still see Andrew. But just to know that one little bobble right there where you got checked up, you had to let out of the gas, cost your momentum, kind of put you in a bad spot, and you ended up just continuously losing time to Andrew there at the end.
Yeah, no, I don't know that it would have played out that much differently if that hadn't happened. I think Thomas was just trying to set up the pit road entry, and I was just trying to, I thought it would be clear that I could get underneath him and get by him by turn 3, and it was just a miscommunication. I wasn't really set up to go to his outside. I would have had to check up either way, but I don't think that would have really made that big of a difference. Clean air is just so big here, and when Drew got in front, you guys saw it on that long run, and lap cars or not, he ran me down, and he was right there, kind of about to take the lead a couple times, but it is what it is, and we'll kind of move on from here. Hope we can. It's been a rough season so far, so just kind of getting a second place run is pretty good.
All right. Well, I got one more question for you. There's nobody listening. There's nobody watching. It's just me and you talking, buddy. Throwback next week at Darlington. What's your scheme?
It's probably going to be an 88 throwback. I think I'm going to end up running what I ran at the throwback race last year, Dale Jr. scheme. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Darlington's a fun track. I know they're doing some updates to the car, so be interested to see kind of how that changes the way that it drives, especially over the long run. And hope we can keep the momentum up. Just need a few good finishes so we can get into the top 10 in points and feel a little bit more solid about the playoff positioning.
All right, Bowie wouldn't tell me. You got any sponsors out there you want to talk to?
No sponsors. Got to thank my teammates over at A51 Pro, and yeah, I great win to Andrews fast all night. It was good having a mostly uneventful run. Unfortunately, there were a couple events that did happen, but for the most part, kind of just grateful to the guys in the league and to Evan for putting the show on, because it is really fun to run these every week.
All right, Mr. Phillip, you might have been number 2 on the track, but you're number 1 in our heart. We love you, man. Congratulations on P2, and I get to pass it on up there to the leader of the Coke Series, Evan Pasoko, to talk to the winner of the race.
Thanks, Terry.
Appreciate it.
It is your second place finisher, Agnew Phillip, will now bring in tonight's race winner of the High Banks Podcast 200, Andrew Freenosh, his 3rd straight Monster Mile win. Andrew, congrats. We'll talk details on this one in a second, but first, what is it with you and Dover? Car be damned, you're always fast.
Yeah, this was honestly, when I bought iRacing, Evan, this was the first track I did. I've always loved this track. It's a challenge. It's a lot of fun to drive, but man, I surprised myself tonight because I didn't think I had anything for these guys. And I don't know, we had speed. We were probably second quickest. I would say Agnell was better, but we somehow lucked out a win, and I guess we keep our streak here going. I'm really excited, really happy we finally got a win this year.
You know, early in this race, admittedly, looked like the Agnew Phillips show, right? Led a bunch of laps. He still wins, or still leads the most laps by a wide margin. But then, you know, instead of getting yellows every 5-6 laps, we got a really long run that ended up going all the way to the end of this race. And when we were approaching the green flag pit stops, you went from a second and change back to on his bumper. Was it at that point that you learned, you know, hey, I had something for him on the long run? Was the long run necessary? And when were you able to kind of flip the script and take control of this?
Yeah, we had a short run there to start the race, and we were right with him. We were racing with him. I thought we had something, and we got on that long run, and he just pulled away. I thought we were done, and slowly but surely, we started reeling him in. His car is so weird. I still don't understand it really because it took so long for the tires to come in. And then we were on his bumper, but it was so hard to pass. And Agnell's such a talented driver that, I mean, I knew we had something, but I kind of wanted to short pit him. We ended up pitting on the same lap. And like I said, we just got lucky to beat him off pit road. I think that was the deciding factor there.
Been a bit of a strange year for you, admittedly, right? I mean, you've had some successes, you know, but it's been feast or famine. You know, just looking at your results over the course of the year, a 20th, a 4th, a 36th and a 32nd, a 26th and a 17th, and now the last 3 trips out, a 2nd, a 4th, and a win. Is it finally turning the page, or is it still, you know, you mentioned you can't quite figure these cars at 100%. Is it still a little bit of uncertainty? I mean, how do you feel confidence-wise now that we're through 8 weeks?
I mean, my confidence is not very high right now, to be honest. In the last few weeks, you know, we went to Bristol Dirt. I feel like we had a chance to win that, and I made a mistake, and it kind of cost us. And then, I mean, last week was Talladega. You can't really count it. And we had a good run tonight, but this is kind of a unique track. You don't see this a lot, so I kind of have to figure out the 1.5 miles. We've been getting wrecked a lot, so kind of have to stop putting ourselves in that situation, and got to figure out the road courses because I am worse than I was years before. So we got to figure a lot of stuff out still, but yeah, I mean, it's a step in the right direction to get a win here, but this is kind of a unique track that you can't really compare to anything else.
Well, the unique tracks will continue. We head to Darlington next Monday night. What's the confidence level? What's the outlook going into that one?
To be honest, it's very low. From what I hear, we're shifting. So to me, stock cars should not be shifting at all. You should get in race gear and go. So that's a big learning curve that I'm going to have to figure out, especially around that track. You know, you kind of focus on driving the car, not downshifting. So I don't know. We'll see what it is. Try to practice as much as we can. We got Road to Pro still. That's kind of taking up most of our time. So we try to put as much time in, but it's definitely not as much as years prior. So you know, we'll see what the future holds with Darlington, but I'm not really looking too forward to it, to be honest with you.
Well, I will say there are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and an Andrew Freenosh win on a Monday night. You got your first of 2022. Anybody want to say hi to while we got you?
Yeah, I want to say big thanks to Lowline and Paul for spotting. He's been spotting all year, and I really appreciate it. It's very nice to have somebody else worry about the strategy. So he made a great call tonight. Big thanks to him. I want to say a big thanks to Tom Moreno and Battle Beaver. If anybody needs any custom Xbox controllers, GameCube controllers, PS5, PS4 controllers, please go check them out. They're a great site. You get everything customized on it. It's amazing. So that's Battle Beaver. And just a big thanks to Tom for supporting this, and all the fans. I hope we put on a good show, and all the drivers love racing against these guys. Where else are you gonna get green flag pit stops at Dover? Just love it so much.
I tell you all the time, appreciate you being a part of this stuff on Monday nights. Andrew, congratulations on the race win, and best of luck. We'll talk to you in a week.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good week.
The race winner tonight of the High Banks Podcast 200. Big thanks to all of our top finishers tonight: Andrew Freenosh, Agnew Phillip, and Brandon Bowie for chatting with us. And Terry, 2 different Dovers tonight. The crazy, wild, at times ugly Dover to start the night, and then the long green flag run, the battles to end it. I think we had, just like it seems we always do, a little bit of everything. And I'm with Andrew, right? Green flag pit stops, great racing, and enticing to battle for the win. And a first-time winner this year, Freenosh finally on the board. Again, still a little bit iffy on it. Of course, so many drivers in this series like him balancing, practicing for a fixed setup series like this, while also competing in the likes of the Road to Pro side of things. So it's tough. It's tricky to balance it all, but he's finally got a win. I think it was well due.
Well, and it kind of mimicked what we saw in the real life stuff with Chase Elliott finally breaking through a past champion. Took a little bit longer than we thought to get the win. And I broke the belt over here because the champ came back, and the champ puts himself in the win column to get another chance to run at the championship to maybe become two-time out here. So kind of be like Roman Reigns, since we're in the wrestling theme tonight. Double champion in the wrestling world. Don't know how much you keep up with the sports entertainment side of it.
You know, casually. I'm not lost on it. I'll give you that much. And I'll tell you what, Andrew is no stranger to breaking records here on Mondays. You know, multi-time winner champ, obviously multi-time cup champ. I mean, he wins all there is. I think I'd have to look extensively to find a stat column that he's not in charge of. But it's no longer like it was 3 years ago when he wins 9 races a year. He's working hard for these. Agnew Phillip has had a bit of a rough start, despite, again, showing great speed early in the year. There are still a lot of people who I think feel like they should have a win by now, which means that there's probably going to be people by the end of this regular season who feel like they should have won that don't. And we're going to start talking more and more as we get deeper in this regular season about missed opportunities. Maybe Agnew Phillip feels like tonight was a missed opportunity, but Freenosh capitalizes as we head into Darlington next Monday on May the 9th.
Yeah, Darlington, I mean, we take a little bit of a rest with that All-Star break. Charlotte's going to be my main ticket. You know, I said it when they came to Bristol Dirt that the winner of that race could potentially be your champion. But going into the Queen City down there on May 23rd, that's the showcase of the Immortals, kind of like the WrestleMania. You win down there at Charlotte, you really set yourself up for success. But this schedule's all over the map, man. The next gen coming to some of these tracks. Man, I'm so excited to be a part of this series.
And we're looking forward to the rest of you joining us as well all season long. 8 down, 22 to go. Still tons of racing coming up later this year here on RaceSpotTV. Until next time, though, that is it for us here tonight from Dover. On behalf of our entire team at RaceSpotTV, Real Sim Racing, and for our partners tonight with SK Sim Racing and the High Banks Podcast, I want to thank you for tuning in. On behalf of our broadcast team, including our producer, Tyler Maxon, Terry Radford, and myself, Evan Pasoko. Congratulations to Andrew Freenosh, his first win of 2022 secured, as we get set for a dance with the Lady in Black next Monday night. That's Monday, May the 9th, for the virtual Darlington Raceway. That race and every race of the 2022 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from Dover.